This is Vegas All Net Radio, the final frontier of free speech.
Views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of Vegas All Net Radio, its affiliates, or its parent company.
The Jacobs Ladder Show, the international internet broadcast online interview talk radio show, exploring ladders of success with Carolyn and Stephen Jacobs. Broadcast live from fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, every Tuesday from 1 to 3 p.m., featuring one guest per hour. Each guest tells us their life story with a one-on-one interview with either Carolyn or Stephen Jacobs. Featured guests include singers, dancers, musicians, entertainers, and entrepreneurs on their ladders of success. Now, here's Carolyn and Stephen Jacobs.
Stephen Jacobs, welcome to the show. We're here every Tuesday from 1 to 3, the Jacobs Ladder Show. I'd like to take a moment out here to kind of thank some people. The Jacobs Ladder Show theme music is a great jazz original composition entitled Go With It by jazz composer, arranger, and trumpeter David Perico and his Pop Evolution Orchestra. Thank you, David, Pop Evolution, and all of you great musicians that were part of recording that song, and thank you for letting us use it. Ms. Carolyn, speaking of musicians, actually, I think he was in that band. Who have you got today?
On his Ladder of Success interview, I have a guitarist, musician, singer, Jim Buck. And Jim Buck, as in a lot of bands in town, we're talking David Perico, Lon Bronson, as well as with the Terry Fader show here in town. Welcome to our show, Jim Buck.
Thank you.
And you heard yourself on that clip.
Well, yeah, it was a very nice surprise to hear that was your theme music. We recorded that at the Stratosphere, and it was just a one-take evening, and it's amazing how... in my opinion, it's amazing that 22 or whatever musicians could do a take that good. You know?
One take?
I mean, it was just a show. It was a live performance.
Oh, that's from
And
the
it was
live.
being recorded by Bob Lancini, who's an excellent mastering and mixing engineer here in town, and he just really got good tones on everybody. But when you think about how unlikely that is, you know, and especially in this day and age when people don't always record very well, when the red light goes on anymore, it's kind of a lost art, and Dave is keeping that alive. So I'm proud to be part of that whenever I can be.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, you are a staple here on the Strip. You perform practically with everybody and at every casino. But how we start our Ladder of Success interview is that we basically start with the first question is, where were you born?
Harlem, New York, 1970.
Wow, I think that's a first for me here at the show.
Yeah, and I grew up in Queens, like the King of Queens.
Uh-huh.
and I lived there my whole life till I was about 25. And I spent a lot of I spent all of my high school and college years commuting back and forth to Manhattan on the subway, and I eventually lived there for a little while too. But yeah, I'm a New York boy.
You're very cosmopolitan at a very early age when you think about it. Wow.
Well, it's all we knew, you know.
And what did your parents do?
My mom taught every kid in the neighborhood how to play guitar and piano. And so I was really, really lucky to grow up taking lessons without knowing I was taking lessons. You know, I'd be I'd be playing with my little cars and stuff, you know, and I would hear the same, you know, method book lessons from multiple kids every day. And I didn't realize what I was learning while I was playing on the floor with my little toys, you know. But my mom started me super early. Maybe around 2.5. I actually do remember this. She would tape the letter names of the notes to the piano keys, you know, and then she would write the notes on the music, and then so I would know, you know, C is here. It's also up on the page.
So you're learning the alphabet early, as well as notes.
Yeah, and sometime around the time I was 6, I remember. I always had a little guitar, but I hadn't taken any lessons from my mom yet. And I remember approaching her and saying, "You got time for one more student, Ma?" You know, and she sat me down, and then I started with her on that. But the only formal school training I ever had was as a drummer, actually. In the 4th grade, I was in the school band. New York City had great public school music programs in those days, and I hope they still do. But I know it's kind of taken a few turns through the years where they lose funding and they don't always have the chance to put kids in these programs. But I mean, those programs are the reason I do what I do today.
Oh my goodness!
So I wound up getting a free ride to NYU eventually as a drummer, and
well, let's backtrack this real quick. And what did your dad do?
We don't talk about him so much.
Oh,
but the guy who is my real dad who raised
Yeah.
me, a guy named Tom, a fantastic, beautiful person, and he's a pharmacist to this day, and he always helped me with my science and my math.
Oh, so you actually got both sides of it. The musical
Yeah,
part
left and right, but I've always gravitated towards the right brain. But these days, for some reason, inexplicably, I'm very interested in astrophysics and quantum mechanics and things that I never thought I would be. But that's what life is interesting, because keep your mind open, and you can study things in the middle of the night to fall asleep on your iPad. I do that every night. I study science all night long, but I never thought I would, but I do now.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, do you have any brothers and sisters?
Nope.
Oh my gosh! So you got all the music attention then from your mom.
Yeah, I mean, she was always. I don't think she wanted me to struggle. So as a good parent would, she tried to steer me at a very early age towards an academic path. She said, "Hey, if you study real hard in school, you can be a doctor. One day." Maybe so. She put this pediatrician germ in my head. And then sometime around age 12 or so, I realized, like I just told you before, I said, "Hey, I'm not very good at science. I don't think I'm going to make a good doctor." And I think it was one of those moments where she's like, "I tried. let's put you on the right path to have the best chance you can." Being a musician. So she always encouraged me to go to school, and I did, and I got my master's in music too. Not that I don't think that ever really helped me get a gig or anything, but it definitely gave me a work ethic, because there's lots of people who go to school who can get a degree and still not really be able to play.
Yes.
But I was, again, so fortunate to grow up where I did, because New York is a brutally honest place, and people will tell you if you're cutting it or not.
Okay.
And I think that's you can make a choice when you're presented with certain kinds of constructive criticism. You can make a choice to quit or to fight, and to keep going. So I always chose to keep going.
Oh, now you mentioned your mom gave guitar lessons.
Yeah, and she tutored kids, because she was a single mom and she needed something to do out of the house where she could watch me, or she could take me with her. So that kept her flexible, and she was always, and actually, in a way, I think watching that, it really set me up to be a gigging musician. I don't think I've ever thought of this until this moment. But, that's the mindset you need to have. You need to be able to move, at the drop of a dime to where the work is, right?
Okay.
You need to be able to be flexible. So I think watching her make it in an unconventional way I think it helped me to have the life I have.
Oh, wonderful. Well,
Because
that's a nice kudos to your mom.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
hey, Ma, I know she's listening.
Now, so your mom's teaching guitar lessons, and you're learning the guitar, but you're starting to play and the piano. Oh, and the piano.
Yeah.
So how did you get to drums then in grade school?
Because there was a school band program.
And that was the only one available?
I wanted to be a drummer.
You wanted to be a drummer?
I wanted to be a drummer.
Oh, my.
So I was 9. And our teacher, Miss Manville, gave us a test to see who could be in the band. And I passed a little written test, whatever that meant.
Oh, my.
I remember it was something like, which note is higher, than the one I played, things like that.
Oh.
Just recognition, little simple exercises. So anyway, I got in the school band, and I wanted to play drums. So I played drums. And, and I'm always going to be a drummer. I mean, I make my living playing guitar.
Yes.
But I'm so grateful that I was a drummer first. I mean, I was other things first, but in terms of things I studied formally, I'm really glad I had that background, because if you don't have that rhythmic foundation, you don't have anything. And to have concentrated so hard on one element of music so hard my whole young life, really set me up to have a pocket, and have a groove and be able to kind of have a center of gravity that if there's people who are weaker around you, they'll kind of fall in with you. Because that's what I always admired about guys when I was coming up. I'm still coming up, but when I was really coming up really young, I would notice that the guys who had a pocket that was so deep could stand in front of you, even with a saxophone, and if you were drifting, it would be like, "No, man, this is where it is." And you would fall right in because they just had this center of gravity, just pull you in. So I always aspired to have that too.
Wow, and you do, because Stephen and I have seen you play on the drums. Saw you play the drums with Michael Grimm.
Yeah, he's one of my closest brothers. I love that guy.
And also, we saw you play guitar with Lon Bronson and with David Perico at the Smith Center. And so I'm looking, and you played with Lon at Sunset. And so how have you played keyboard at all around town?
Yeah, actually, sometimes. Actually, one of the last times I remember, on my album, I played every instrument.
Yes.
And sang every voice. There's a few drum loops because it's an R&B album and it's stylistically correct to have the sound of like a loop sometimes. But there's some live drums on that as well. But in terms of your keyboard question, that's there was a summer, maybe 2 summers ago, where we were playing with Michael Grimm at the M a lot.
Yes.
And I would sort of be the guy who didn't know what instrument he was playing until the night of sometimes, or before usually. And one time I played keyboards the whole night on his gig.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And when I say that, understand that I have to practice really hard to walk in on a situation like that on that instrument. It's not like I just walk in off the street. Like on guitar, I walk in off the street all the time, and they throw music in front of my face, and. So you
can read as well as play by ear and do it all.
It's sort of it's just a courtesy to know how to read. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but we've run into people who don't.
Oh yeah, and I got most of my heroes couldn't read. But I'm just talking about if you're going to be a professional musician, you don't want to waste people's time. So if you show up at a situation. If they hire you to play their music, like Dave Perico, for instance, you have to show up and be able to get through it and not embarrass yourself and them. That's how I look at it. It's communication. So I wasn't always a great reader, but at some point I made it a point to become one, because I don't want to refuse to communicate with other people. That's how I look at it.
Wow. Well, I tell you, whenever we've seen you perform, my gosh, not only are you great, but you're surrounded by great musicians.
Oh, I'm so
and it's
lucky.
Wonderful.
I'm so lucky. I play almost every day, and it's always with fantastic people.
Wow.
Yeah. This town is full of wonderful musicians.
It is. And that's why we, on the Jacobs Ladder Show, like to promote live music, because there's so many talented people and very few venues. So it's wonderful that you've got a lot of outlets for you to play at. Now, when you talked about you started the drums in grade school, and you're going that, and then in high school, are you still playing drums?
Well, what happened in high school was I auditioned for that school that Fame was based on.
Ooh.
The High School of Music and Art, it was called at the time.
Yes.
It was up in Harlem, and then they moved it down to Lincoln Center and renamed it the LaGuardia School. And I used to study drums with a guy named Harvey Kingston, who was a fantastic drum teacher in Queens, and my mom or my dad would bring me there, and he prepared me for these auditions really, really well. And I got in. But at the same time, somebody, a friend of my parents, said, hey, you should have Jimmy take this test for this school called Regis. Regis is a really, really difficult school run by Jesuits, like heavy order of, Catholic priests who are really steeped in academia. So we were learning Latin, and I even took Greek for fun on my lunch hour. I was
for fun?
Yeah, for fun, while I was taking Latin and Spanish. So what happened was I took the test, I think, to appease my parents, but I got in, and I was like, oh man, because I didn't want to go there at all. I'm a musician. I'm still a musician, and I knew it was sort of a detour. If I go here, my reading, like we were talking about earlier, is gonna suffer a little bit, because I'm gonna be up translating Latin all night. And I really was. But I made the decision to do that because in my young 13-year-old mind, I thought to myself, well, I know I'm always going to be a musician, but I might not study Latin on my own one day.
Wow.
So I stayed active as a musician, and I was playing gigs on the weekends all through high school and making a little bit of money on the weekends and stuff. But yeah, I was really heavily steeped in a very academic lifestyle. And I do remember being 14 years old, starting Regis, and that first weekend where I was up till 4 in the morning every night trying to do my homework, and I remember, and that's the hardest thing, by the way, I've ever done in my life, was going to that high school. My master's degree was nothing. I'm serious. That school never gave us a single high school textbook, but they didn't tell us. It was only 100.
So it was great. Preparatory school, basically.
Yeah, they would what they do in that school, and they still do, it's free. They don't make you pay for it.
Oh.
They test upwards of 3,000 boys every year, and then they go through an interview process after they narrow that down, and then they take maybe 120 something, and then after that, however many make it through, maybe it might be 110 or even 89 or 90 people. It's a really it's a place to have a nervous breakdown. Absolutely. If I'm serious. I'm really serious, but I'm so thankful for that experience because it gave me a work ethic. I can withstand mental anguish. And I can when I have deadlines.
Yes. Oh, yes.
When I have to make a recording for somebody, when I have to learn a stack of pages like this for somebody's gig, when I have to transcribe, countless songs off of somebody's recordings and be ready by tomorrow. I've been through that, and I always go back in my mind to being 14 years old and having to sit up and do my Latin homework while I'm looking at my piano and my drums in the corner saying, I'll see you guys later. I'm not going to be able to talk to you guys for a while. But see, that worked out in my favor because I wound up getting an academic scholarship to NYU, where I was a music major.
Well, we're going to.
So I beat the system. See?
Yeah, that's amazing. We're going to come back to that because what I'd like to do before our break is play one of your songs that you brought. Now you've got a brand new CD that, in fact, you held me off coming onto the show because you wanted to finish your CD first.
It was being mastered at the time.
And so, what's the first song that we're going to hear? And again, you played all the instruments and you're singing on this. So please tell us about this.
This first song is called Sunday Morning, and it is a song about this whole album is a love album. And this is an R&B album, and a lot of people might be people who know me might be a little surprised at this record that I've made, because people are used to hearing me maybe play with Lon, playing Whip and Post by the Allman Brothers and screaming and playing really loud distorted guitar. There's not a single distortion sound on this album. It's not even a guitar album, although I do play a few hollow body jazz solos, but it's just an album of songs that I've really, really needed to make for a long time. So I finally made it happen because I'm my worst enemy with recording. I actually have in my laptop from 2008, I have 13 albums finished, all original, where I played every instrument and sang everything. But I'm so meticulous and I never think anything is good enough.
Yes.
So, but we're all going to die one day too, so I have to make sure I get some of this out.
That's true.
So this album for me was weighing the heaviest on my heart. So for the last year and a half, I've actually been mixing it.
Okay.
Because I'm meticulous and crazy, but I also becoming a better engineer in the process. That's the thing. I'm a musician, and by default, I've become a better engineer, and hopefully I'll become a better and better engineer. And my buddy Frank Klepacki, who's a fantastic drummer in this town, mastered this album for me. So that's the final step to getting it up to industry standards in terms of EQ and compression and levels and things like that. So I think he did a fantastic job on that last step. So Sunday Morning is a song about commitment. So I hope you enjoy it.
Let's listen.
Baby, I came home to you. While I was out there, girl, I was nothing but true. And now I'm here with you, and I can't hardly wait for us to pour the wine and celebrate. If I told you what I wanted, girl, you give it to me. If I told you what I needed, girl, and I said it tenderly. You told me not to go, baby. I promise I would stay. We'll come together Sunday morning. Well, Sunday morning, shining through my window. Well, tonight is just a memory that was still with you and me. When the morning rolls around, we'll still have this love we found. You never have to look around for me, 'cause I'm right here where I wanna be, dreaming with you till Sunday morning, Sunday morning, Sunday morning. my day. Let's turn the lights down low and play our favorite song. We've waited on this moment for so very long. If I told you what I wanted, girl, would you give it to me? If I told you what I needed, girl, and I asked you tenderly, if you asked me not to go away, I promise I will stay. I'll still be by your side Sunday morning. One Sunday morning, creep through my window, baby. Well, tonight it's just a memory. It was still with you and me. When Sunday morning rolls around, we still have the love we found. You ain't gotta look around for me, 'cause I'm right here where I wanna be. One Sunday morning, will creep through my window. Well, tonight it's just a memory. It will still be you and me. Oh yeah. Sunday morning rolls around, we'll still have the love that we have found. You ain't gotta look around for me, 'cause I'm right here where I wanna be, dreaming with you just Sunday morning. Oh, now baby, can you feel the breeze blowing through the screen door on the back porch, washing over you and me? I'll bring you hot coffee in the morning, baby, and we'll go walking hand in hand past the church, making plans. Can you hear the church bells ring? Yeah. Sunday morning, Sunday morning, Sunday morning, baby. Sunday morning, Sunday morning, Sunday morning.
Wow. Wow, Jim. Beautiful music, beautiful instruments as well as your voice.
Thank you.
We'll talk more about this album and your
Great.
and where you can get. Let me just mention, you can get this at cdbaby.com. You can download it from Amazon and iTunes, but we'll talk more about that when we come back. This is Carolyn Jacobs with the Jacobs Ladder Show. Now let's hear a word from our sponsors. This is Carolyn Jacobs with the Jacobs Ladder Show, where we are live every Tuesday from 1 to 3 p.m. and we feature one guest per hour on their ladder of success. And this hour we are having the success story of Jim Buck. Now this interview will be on our website this weekend, so just go to our website, JacobsLadderShow.com, and you can hear this interview again. Refer your family and friends. But also we are videotaping this, so you'll see this soon too on Facebook. Now, when we mention really quick, the best way to get your CD and your music is?
Well, if you see me, you can get one from me. But there are 3 ways to get it digitally. If you like to download music, iTunes, Amazon.com, and CD Baby. And on CD Baby, you can also purchase the actual hard copy CD. And I was so happy to see how many people wanted that. You know, it almost feels like it's being phased out, you know, that particular medium, CD. But and I'm really surprised how many people in their 20s, actually, young people are saying.
Excellent.
Mostly, that's who's saying, "Hey, man, I want the actual thing to hold in my hand." You know.
Oh, that's
You know,
wonderful.
and they don't want the compressed file. It's pretty cool that people are even aware, because it's only gotten worse. You know, records were probably the best sounding thing, despite the pops and crackles. You know, and the bandwidth keeps getting smaller, and there's mistakes in the algorithms, even from the beginning of the CD, in terms of translating an audio performance, you know, in true fidelity. But, you know, the convenience factor is really nice too. I mean, I'm not trying to bash digital because digital is really cool. And I record at 4 in the morning in my house because nobody can hear a guitar simulation going through a Marshall stack that's not really a Marshall stack. And I can get that done at 4 in the morning with my neighbors, real close, and they don't ever hear it. So I like digital for reasons like that. But I'm a very analog guy, actually. And the CD is digital, but I'm just saying at this point it's sort of a throwback. It's it's almost like old school.
Oh my God, this is amazing. And now it's vinyl was old school. Now you're saying CDs are.
It seems to be. But I do remember being a kid taking guitar lessons from this guy, John Vignon, when I was 13. And he said to me, Jimmy, they're going to come out with this thing next year. It's called this compact disc. And they say it might replace records. I was like, nah. And who knew,
Yeah,
who knew what was ahead
hard
of us?
to imagine. Before we went to playing your music and a break, we were just finishing up that you went to, got your master's. Let's talk about that. So you ended up getting a music degree after all, after being, because here you are, you're a brainiac as well as a
don't
musician.
think I am.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I don't know. I wound up kind of getting a surprise. I applied for the master's program, and I didn't think I'd have any way to pay for it. But I remember at our final jazz big band concert, which would have been, I guess, in 1992, our jazz, the head of the jazz department, Tom Boris, who's passed on now, unfortunately, he was a real cool guy. He taught us jazz arranging, and he ran the whole program. He made this announcement at the concert, that next year I'm going to break from tradition. I'm going to have 2 graduate assistants. And so the one was one guy and one was me. And I had no idea. So then there was the way to pay for it. So I used to sit in the jazz office and answer phones. And there was always an upright bass in the corner. And I taught myself to play that because it was there. And I took lessons too. I mean, from a really, really great teacher named Mike Richmond. But that's one of the things I do too. I'm not Ray Brown, but I can play in tune and I can play in time low.
Okay. Now, you said that you played all the instruments on your CD. And what are they?
Drums, bass, guitar, keyboards, and all the vocals. And there are a few drum loops, some that I made, some that I didn't make. Because for the style of music that I made, this sort of romantic R&B album, that's part of the palette of sounds you hear. And it was right. Whatever was right, I did. So, I mean, I have live drums on some songs where it was really appropriate. And when you want that slightly more modern type of loop sound, I have that too.
You play a lot of genres. I mean, I've heard you play rock, pop, blues, R&B, and very soulful sounds. Great voice. And your voice is great for all of them, which is really amazing when you think about everything that you accomplished. But let's talk about you finish your degree. Mm-hmm. And then what do you do next? Okay,
well, what happened when I finished my degree was I gave my last master's recital, and I decided that everybody at NYU knew me as a drummer. Uh-huh. And meanwhile, I'm playing at the Bitter End and the Bottom Line and not the Bottom Line, Bitter End and Kenny's Castaways and CBGB's and all these like New York kind of original clubs, doing my thing, but nobody at school knows me doing that. So I say, I'm gonna play some guitar and some bass and sing on my recital too. So I did the first set. And I mean, this is a pretty pinnacle moment in my life, actually. I played the first set on drums and congas and percussion and stuff, and that went over very, very well with the adjudicator. It was a real famous dude, piano player. And then the second set, I kind of decided to sort of rock a little bit, and he hated it. And he actually told me, and actually this is part of that New York tough love thing and I do appreciate this because it made me work so much harder. He said to me, I gave you a C on your recital because I gave you an A on the first set, and I gave you an F on the last set because you should never play guitar in public again. So, and that's one of those moments. That's one of those pinnacle moments where you go, all right, it hurts pretty bad to hear that from somebody you respect, right? And especially when you felt so good, and there was so much love in the room that night coming from your friends and your family who really dug it, and other musicians too. But I had to kind of take a look at myself.
Wait a minute, he just wanted you to play drums?
Well, he's that's what I was going to school for. That's what they gave me a scholarship to study.
So he wants to keep you focused on it. Oh,
yeah, no, and that's cool. And I do understand the whole jack of all trades, master of none. But I've never tried to take anything I do lightly. So I mean, the way I always thought of it growing up, because this is before digital. This is before you could play through a guitar amp simulator in the middle of the night. I always thought, okay, I could play drums during the daytime when my neighbors, can take it, and then at night when the neighbors can't take it, I can switch to something that they won't hear, like a nylon string guitar or something. So I always thought, make use of all your time, all the time, So as long as it's music, you're always doing something, So I never thought it was I was betraying one thing to do another, because I was just doing what I could with the time I had, which was, I've always been sort of real focused, and I'm a late guy. I stay up all night, all the time still, so, even as a kid I did. So to me, I was just, I wasn't sleeping, but I was playing guitar. So that was just better use of my time. Anyway, he said this to me. I kind of took a good look at it after I finished being a little upset about it. And I thought, you know what? He's right. I never apprenticed the way I have on drums, because I've been playing drums on gigs since I was maybe 12 years old, and playing in bars when I shouldn't have been playing in bars, and playing weddings when I was a very young teenager and stuff. And I thought about all those years that I'd spent hauling gear and putting in the back of cars and going to places and playing and kind of, getting my butt kicked, in front of people. That's how you learn. And I thought, well, I haven't, truthfully, I guess I haven't put that kind of time in on guitar, even though I've been playing it my whole life. I haven't had the professional experience. So I went and bought this PRS guitar that I still play a lot. This is in 1994. And I thought, okay, I need a guitar that won't work against me, that's not fighting my hands, and that will stay in tune. And this is a nice one, and I bought it. And I practiced. Now I'm like 24 years old at the time, so I wasn't working all the time. So every day I wasn't working, minimum 12, 15-hour practice days.
Wow.
To catch up. I still feel to this day I'm still trying to catch up
You're kidding.
to my drums on guitar. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and when I moved here, and I always forget about this moment, but Rhonda, my wife, always reminds me. She says, remember when you got your first gig in Vegas and you sat in on guitar and you didn't tell anybody you played drums, and they gave you the gig and you turned to me and said, hey, I passed myself off as a guitar player. And I forgot, but I did used to look at myself that way. I looked at myself that way for a very long time, as a drummer passing himself off as a guitar player.
Okay, now I want to talk about this, because you slid over this very, very fast here. So
Yeah.
you moved to Vegas, and how long did it take for you to get your first gig?
3 hours.
Okay.
That was some luck right there.
So how did you do that?
In 1995, I helped my parents move to Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Okay.
I thought I was going to hang out for a minute and go back home. And then I met my wife. And then plans changed. So I stayed in New Mexico, and we stayed there together for 5 years. And it's a beautiful, beautiful place to live. And Santa Fe is gorgeous. But I was starting to feel really like I had sort of hit the top of the ceiling of what I could get done.
Yes.
In the industry I'm in. I mean, it's not a town built around music. In the visual arts, man, what a beautiful place to be. If you're a
beautiful.
sculptor or jeweler
That's
or a
interesting. I hadn't
painter,
thought
it's a
about it.
very creative town. But somebody told me one time, and I thought this was a fun way to look at it. Somebody said, man, what we need is a town the same size right next door of all audience. And then we can make this work. I thought that was a pretty good way to look at it. I made it. Actually, it was a very, very difficult living, but I made a living there. Partially because I play a bunch of different stuff. But anyway, when the time was right, it just felt right. And I was starting to get that feeling like I had to move on and go somewhere else. And I had never even thought of Las Vegas. I don't know why, but I grew up in New York City, so I always just thought of going back there. Or maybe LA. Or maybe Austin, Texas, because of Stevie Ray Vaughan and the whole mystique, because he's one of my biggest heroes. And I took trips there, and I was really impressed with the music that was going down there. And I really wanted to move there, actually. And then my buddy Dennis, who's a great guitar player in Albuquerque, his name is Dennis Soto, and he's one of the most fantastic players I've ever heard in my entire life. So if he ever hears this, I just want you to know that, Dennis. But anyway, he suggested, we were just eating lunch one day, he goes, you guys should go to Vegas. And I was just at that point where I needed to do something, make a change right now. And I said, all right. And we left the next night just to visit, not to move. But I did start to quit things right before I left. I mean, I was an adjunct at the College of Santa Fe teaching lessons, and I actually called them and said, I'm not coming back next semester. And they said, why? I said, I'm going to Vegas. I was going to Vegas. I was taking a trip. You know what I mean? I was visiting. But I wasn't lying, but I had no plan at all. You know? So I walked into this Palace station, and Jerry Lopez was playing with his band Santa Fe, and
Yes.
they come from where I was leaving.
Yes.
And I said, hey, my buddy Dennis says hi. Oh, yeah, Dennis, what do you play? It was like a 45-second conversation. And he goes, a buddy of mine just called me this morning. It was Dave Hart. You know Dave Hart? Mm-hmm. Fantastic guitar player. He had just left a lounge gig that morning. And he said, you should go down to Mandalay Bay right now. He goes, I can't recommend you because I don't know what you play like. I've never heard you, but I could tell you this much. Why don't you go down there and introduce yourself, see what happens? And I walked in, and the keyboard player looked up at me and smiled like he knew me, but he didn't. Maybe I just looked like a guitar player. I don't know what it was. But it turned out it was my buddy Millard. He actually looked at me and smiled, and we kind of connected just visually in the room. And he came up to me on the break and said, hey, man, you a guitar player? I said, yeah, I am. He goes, you know, we're looking for one. I said, I do know you're looking for one. That's why I'm here. He goes, where are you from? I said, Queens. He goes, I'm from Queens. So we kind of had this rapport. Uh-huh. Anyway, they had me come back the next night. I should say that the groundwork was laid in the first 3 hours I was in town. And the next day, they offered me the gig.
And the group is?
That was a lounge group. We played a lot of R&B and stuff, and it was fantastic. It was a really good band, and I learned a lot of tunes on that gig, and I had such a good time.
And a way for people to come and see other musicians. To see
yeah, I met a lot of musicians while I was doing that gig because the House of Blues is right across from it, and I met a lot of people that I still know today doing that gig. So that's what got me here, and it got me here like that, you know. And that was such a wonderful opportunity to just fall into, you know.
Well, what I'm going to do is we're running short of time, so we're going to go straight to some music, and let's play the second song. And this is called "This Is the Heart." And tell us a little bit about this.
Well, when Rhonda and I were living in a pretty beat up neighborhood in New Mexico, and I mean, it was pretty dangerous there. Actually, we would hear fights going outside our window at night. Sometimes, you know, I remember looking through the window one night and seeing, what's that guy hitting that guy with? And he had like ripped a mailbox off the pole and was beating him with the mailbox, you know. And there was some, it was a dangerous neighborhood, you know. Wow. And I had come from New York City, but I learned very quickly, you know, never think, oh, I've seen it all. I've taken the subway at 4 a.m, so I'm safe everywhere. Because, you know, every city has its place where you gotta, you know, be respectful of your surroundings. So, you know, and I never had problems there. I mean, I think being a musician is the most perfect bridge to getting along with everybody.
Interesting.
Because I've played in places where if I wasn't playing music, maybe something could have happened. But you know what I mean?
Yes,
through my whole life, you know,
absolutely.
music is a unifying force, you know, and it's a common language, and you know, if you play music that people can feel deep inside, then everything's cool, you know. And I think that if the world acted like musicians, everything would be all right. But anyway, this is
your inspiration for the song?
Well, you know what? Sometimes in chaos, you know, you kind of reach for something peaceful.
Okay.
And I wrote this song in that house, you know.
Okay.
And at the time, I was listening to a lot of Brian McKnight and Boyz II Men and a lot of gospel music, actually. And that was kind of all in my ears at the time. And so this song fell out of me in this little barrio house in New Mexico. And I've been wanting to make this album since 1997 when I wrote this song.
And this is an R&B song called "This Is the Heart."
I don't know, sometimes I just feel like I don't belong here, like I'm nothing but a stranger. Listen, where can I go? Where can I stay? And what happens now? I lost my way. And here, girl, here is my heart. This is the heart that I give to you. Well, it's a little bit tired, baby. It's a little bit used. This is the soul that I try to keep. Keep it with me now, baby. Please. my crying eyes find their sleep. Oh, now, hey, well, yeah. Now I left my home, left all that I knew. Now you know it's so safe with you now, baby. And I close my eyes, and I understand. And I've come all this way to be your man. And here, baby, and here is my heart. This is the heart that I give to you. Here is the heart that I give to you. It's a little bit tired, just a little bit used. This is the soul that I try to keep it for myself, but please, baby, please, keep it with you. So my crying eyes find their sleep. I gotta find my sleep. I gotta find my rest. You know I don't feel good without your sweet caress. The way you hold me, girl, in the middle of the night. Now, baby, let me know that everything's gonna be alright. And here is my heart, baby. I know it ain't much, to look at, but it's yours for the taking. This is the heart that I give to you. Well, it's a little bit tired, baby. It's a little bit used, yeah. This is the soul that I try to keep it for myself, but baby, please now, baby, keep it with you. So my crying eyes find their sleep. Please, baby, please, baby, please. If you believe me, if you believe in love, if you believe me, now sing. Nights in the dark when I lie in my bed and I could not get you out of my head. I found my home with you. I love you.
Wow, that is so beautiful. I love your voice. And during the break, what a lot of people couldn't hear is that Jim's actually sharing all his techniques on the sounds of the instruments. I love that. Thank you for sharing it with us and our board people. So
no, it's just shop talk, I guess. But yeah, we were talking about the vocoder type sound on those chorus vocals, and I kind of made those out of, I kind of handcrafted that sound. There's plenty of plugins you can use to record. You can use a talk box or a vocoder, which is what I grew up listening to. But I just kind of sang those parts in and then just manipulated with different filters and things until I got that. And that's a sound that's pretty prevalent on the record. Actually, I've always liked that. When I think I was 12 when Earth, Wind & Fire came out with Let's Groove, and then you heard that vocoder sound, and I've just Roger Troutman and I Want to Be Your Man and all those kind of songs. I like that. It's just a soulful sound, even though it's a robot. I love it. Soulful robots.
Well, it's neat that you got the album the way you wanted it, and you're happy with it. Now, people can purchase this where?
iTunes. CD Baby, where you can do it as a digital download or actually order the physical CD, and also Amazon.com.
So Amazon and iTunes download, but if you want the actual CD, you can get CD Baby, which has both the download and the CD.
Correct.
So. And you also are on Facebook, and you actually have a brand new Facebook business page.
Yeah, I just put up a like page.
Jim
So come
Buck
say hi to me, Jim
Music.
Buck Music on Facebook.
Okay, that sounds great. Now, when we left before the music, you had just came to Vegas, and within 3 hours made enough contacts that you have a gig starting. And so, but you also met some very famous people here in town, David Perico and Lon Bronson. So how did that lounge act now portray into those?
Yeah, I guess when I first got to town, I was doing the lounges, and there were some other lounge gigs as well. And my first show that was a show was that Coasters, Platters, Drifters show at the Sahara, when there was a Sahara. And I was absolutely on cloud nine my first night doing that. First of all, I'm a huge doo-wop fan, like tremendous. Like, I love that music. I have a doo-wop album too that's going to come out sometime down the road. I've actually, in my laptop at home, I have about 12, 13 albums complete.
So different genres.
Yeah, and I'm trying not to make too much of a crazy, album that goes all over the place, because when I listen to something, I like to be in a mood to hear something and have it be that thing.
That's why this one was all R&B then.
Yeah, I want it to be consistent, and this is definitely, it's a love album, and it's a very respectful album, if I do say so. I mean, it's very respectful of women, I feel. I don't think I said anything that would offend anybody. I think it's all just in reverence to love, so that's what this album's about. Tonight is all about you, is the name of the album, and that's what every song kind of is going for. But anyway, and then I wound up subbing on different things through the years, like Mamma Mia when it was over at the Mandalay Bay. And,
oh my God,
Hairspray, and We Will Rock You, where I got to meet one of my heroes of my life, Brian May. I was the sub on both chairs of that show.
Oh my goodness.
He's an astrophysicist, by the way. Did you know that?
I did not know that. Oh my goodness.
He was the coolest guy in the entire world.
Oh my, and great hair.
Yeah, great hair. And anyway, so through doing those things, eventually, I would wind up being the sub on all these things, and I never had landed an actual show that was mine. But eventually I got on Legends and did that for a while. And the whole time when I'm on a show, I never lose touch with freelancing, because first of all, I love to play every minute. That's the main reason. But number two is all shows end, and that's the only guarantee, anywhere. So if you want to stay employed, you really should keep playing as much as you can everywhere. So anyway, in between, I've done all kinds of things. But Terry Fader is a big blessing in my life. I've been on that gig for 6 years, and I was playing with Lon Bronson, like you mentioned, at the Green Valley Ranch, when there was a really nice room to play in.
Yes.
And we played in there, and I was having one of my rare nights where I liked how I played. Maybe every 2 years I get it.
Every 2 years. You're too hard on yourself.
Well, you gotta.
Oh no, you are such a star.
Every 2 years, no. Thank you, but every 2 years, you get a night where you feel like, hey man, I really played some stuff tonight. And luckily, that was one of those nights that every 2 years I get. And
what happened?
Well, the John Wackerman, who's the band leader on Terry Fader, and Bill Zappia, who's our fantastic MD conductor, were there. And they were looking to meet me, but I didn't know it. And they gave me the gig. And so I've been on that for 6 years, and it's been incredible. And all the styles I play actually help me to play a gig like that, because you have to, on every show I've been on actually, Legends included, even because you have to jump around between styles, and you have to know what sound you're going to use that's going to evoke that feeling. When you're playing a 50s rockabilly thing, you have to know, put that slapback delay on your guitar. Even if it wasn't on the recording, sometimes when the show's going by like this, you have to come up with tones that are going to evoke a feeling of an era and certain techniques that sound. So if you're playing metal, you got to play one way. When you're playing jazz, you got to play another way, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, yeah, he does quite a mixture, so you have to be flexible to play with him.
Everything from Broadway to country to rock to hair metal, everything. It's fantastic. And it's a fantastic band, and we play constantly through the entire show.
Well, I want to tell our listening audience that they go on Facebook, that you have a lot of YouTubes on there, because not only do you play with these very well-known groups and shows, but you love like you said, you like to play all the time.
Yeah.
I saw you on the bridge outside the New York.
That's one of my favorite things I
And
do.
it's like a 4-hour gig. You're on the street with everyone around you, and they're videotaping you.
Yeah, there's a nice guy named Chuck who keeps bringing his GoPro and taking nice footage of me. But yeah, I've always loved to play solo, acoustic and just sing songs I like. And it's a real good release for me. Just do whatever I want. It's actually one of the favorite things I do in the world because I get to do maybe 3-4 a month down there, usually on a Friday.
Wow.
And it's fun. And sometimes I bring this drum rig and play drums with my feet while I play guitar and sing, and just to give myself some accompaniment. And that's something I've been doing for about 20 years. It started out as a financial thing where they didn't have enough money to pay a band, but they wanted the sound of a band. So I said, well, I'll just be these guys for you. So
you are the band. You are the band. Oh, that is so cool. We only have a minute left here. So what would you like to share with our listening audience? Because we've shared that fact that how they can buy your CD. It's a fabulous R&B sound. I like the fact you have one genre per album, especially with all the new ones you're going to have coming out soon.
Yeah, they're going to be coming out. My wife's album is a blues album, very Etta James in style, and that's going to be the next one. I'm mixing it right now. And I have other albums that are coming out, kind of more gospel-oriented and rock-oriented. But and I don't try to be eclectic for the sake of being eclectic. It's just that I'm a songwriter. However it comes out, and I try to put it in a framework that people can
Well, I have to thank you for being on our show today.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you so much, very much. This has been a pleasure.
And thank you for being so philosophical about musicians and your story, which is great. This is Carolyn Jacobs with the Jacobs Ladder Show, and we'll be here next week. And thank you very much for being on our show, Jim.
Thank you.